Hello, I'm Amanda from 3 3/4 and Happy New Year! On the subject of New Year, let's talk about New Year's resolutions. Yeah. In particularly, did I say that right? In particularly, I want to talk about my quilting New Year's resolutions. I decided 3/4 of the way through last year I wanted to make a resolution to complete a lot of my unfinished projects that I've got just laying around in my sewing room. In the quilting world, unfinished projects can be called a number of different things. They include UFOs, which I think is unfinished object, isn't it? There's PhDs, which means projects half done. Or there's also WIP, or WIP, which is work in progress. So I'm going to be calling them work in progress because technically they are work in progress. I just sort of stopped doing them. So a lot of the projects that I've got to show you that I'm going to attempt to finish this year are incompleted quilt tops. There's blocks that I need to put together, and there's quilt tops that are just ready to just be quilted and then finished. If you are a quilter yourself, you can definitely sympathize and understand just how many work in progresses or unfinished projects you've got lying around. For me, my work in progresses are usually those quilts where you get really excited about a new project, you buy all the fabric, you cut and you just start doing it, and then it gets to the point where it's time to quilt. Then I conveniently find a new project to start, and then that gets left behind, as you do. But also, I guess if you're a quilter, you can sympathize with a quilt that's just not really going anywhere. You started it but it's just not working out, or you just don't really have time to really finish a project. That can definitely happen. Once you don't have time to finish it, you forget about it, and then you discover it about 2 years later and you're like, oh. Okay, so the first one that I'm going to attempt to finish this year is a quilt top that I completed 2 years ago, I think, so I can't even remember. But it's just a really simple rail fence. It's about the size of a cot quilt, and I made it out of these really sweet spots that I was just absolutely obsessed with at the time. That's the rail fence block, and it's just 3 strips sewn together, and then you put it into a block that looks like that. And with this block you can put it any way you want and create all different types of patterns and things. I'm not really sure why I put that one away. I think actually, no, I do remember why I put it away, but I don't really want to say why I did. It might be a bit controversial. I think, like any quilter, scraps become a really big issue. You just build up so many scraps. I'm always struggling and always trying to find a way to use up those scraps. So these next 2 quilts are ones that I started. They're quilt tops and they're ready to get quilted, but I just haven't had time to do it, or I just didn't really want to. So this one, I think again this one I started about 2 years ago. It's from a pattern by Anna Maria Horner. It's her free PDF pattern that she had called Spinning Stars. I don't know whether you can see it in the background, but her quilt looked quite scrappy, so I thought that's a perfect quilt to use up some of my big scraps. So that's what I sort of started. If you want to see more of this quilt, what it looks like, in my fast forward quilting video, it's in the background. So I did that one entirely out of scraps. And the other scrappy quilt, you might recognize it. I had it all over my blog last year. I think I called it Scrap Happy String Quilt, but it's huge. Yeah, I would guess that it's about the size for a double bed, and it's just completely full of scrap fabrics. I do really love this quilt top, and I think it's going to make a beautiful quilt. It's just, I think the only thing that's put me off from actually completing it is because it's just so big, and I'm not much of a fan of big quilts, but I can do them. It just takes a lot of patience and, you know, gusto. So yeah, I'm really quite excited about that one. And even though I've just showed you two quite scrap heavy sort of quilts, I still have so much scrap fabric left over, it's ridiculous. Okay, so this next quilt was one that I started this time last year, so it was summer. We were experiencing 40-degree plus heat, and I'm pretty sure that's, no, I am sure that that is why this quilt hasn't been finished. I wasn't really quite in the mood to be sitting under a quilt and quilting it in 45+ degree heat. So this pattern I originally found in an Australian quilting magazine. I can't remember which one, but when I first saw it I knew I wanted to make it because I had said to myself that I wanted to challenge myself with some curved quilting or blocks with curves in it. So this one featured the Drunkard Paths curve. Originally this pattern came from Jen Carlton Bailey, and she made her quilt, it's called 5HTP squared. But yeah, I saw it and I loved it, and I also really wanted to make a quilt that had just solids in it. I didn't want any sort of pattern or print. I just wanted solid colour, and I love colour, so that's why I made this quilt. Ooh. I ended up calling this one Colour Play. The picture of the completed quilt top is on my blog in, I think, in the My Quilts little tab, if you want to see what it really looks like. But it's really big. I think it's a good queen size quilt, and yeah, I'm just sort of dreading getting it done, but I will, because it's my New Year's resolution and it will get done, even though I'm quite stuck of how to actually quilt it. I could always just take it to someone to get quilted, but no, I want to do it myself. I like having that control because I'm a control freak. So the next two up are just blocks that I've sort of made and then put in a pile and hung up to look at, and I haven't really thought about putting them together. The first blocks up are my Paper Piece Union Jack blocks, and I've made a good dozen, I think, out of all different sorts of fabrics. I'm sorry if you're British and I've offended you by totally mutilating your lovely flag with different prints, but I saw a quilt by the lady who does Diary of a Quilter, her blog. She made this Britannia kind of quilt, and I'm like, oh, I love it, and it totally fits my obsession with everything Britain and London and stuff. So I really wanted to make a quilt to symbolise that. So that's what I've got to put together, and hopefully I will get them done. I think I'm just going to put some really simple sashing around each side and then make it into a lovely quilt. So yeah. And finally, in 2011, I started doing the Craftsy Block of the Month with Amy Gibson. It was all delivered online, and I absolutely loved them. I learnt so many different techniques. From that class I learnt how to make hexies, I learnt how to do the curved piecing, I learned how to do paper piecing, I learned how to do so many different things. I learned string quilting. If you want to check that out, there's a link down in the description box below which you can check that out. And it's a free course too, which is even better. I love free things because I'm a cheapskate. So yeah, I've got all these blocks that have just been sitting on my sewing desk for the last year and a bit, and I've used some really pretty fabrics. Oh, Dresden plates! I learned how to make Dresden plates. I was never really good at making those. So I've got all these different blocks that I need to put together. I'll possibly sash them and make up another big quilt. There's lots of big quilts happening this year. Ugh, that means buying lots of wadding. Oh gosh. So yeah, that's another project that will hopefully get done. So that's all of the works in progress that I want to start getting into and finish this year. Hopefully I've inspired you to get into your own works in progress and get them done. Let's make this year to get projects finished. Thumbs up if you like this video. Anything like that is a great encouragement to me. Subscribe to me if you want to see some more crafty quilty things, as well as lots of other things that I've decided to try and do this year. So thanks for watching, and I hope to see you sometime very, very soon. Bye. La 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 la.